You're getting the opportunity to present to senior leadership, but you're not using your time wisely, and as a result, you're not moving up the career ladder. I'm Kendall Berg, that career coach, and I help people progress and accelerate their careers in line with their success. Today, we're talking about how to present to senior leadership in a way that is going to help you sound more senior and also get the visibility and recognition that you need. So the first mistake that I see people make when they're presenting to senior leadership is they're not focused on what leadership's goals are. Oftentimes, we get tunnel vision. We're really focused on ourselves, what's important to us, what we see as the highest priorities, and things that took a lot of time. And when you're so in the weeds on a particular project, you can get sucked into the minutia of what had to be done rather than focusing on what leadership is trying to achieve. So step one when you're presenting to senior leadership is take 5 minutes, write out each person that you're presenting to, and what are the top 1 or 2 things that they care about. Are they trying to drive revenue, efficiency, make smart changes, roll out organizational change, execute a strategy? What are the goals of that particular senior leader? Then think through what you're presenting and how it aligns with those individuals' goals. If you're presenting to someone in finance, then you should be sure that you understand how your project is limiting expenses, increasing revenue, or driving efficiencies. That's what's going to translate most to a financial leader. If you're presenting to someone in IT, how is this going to make their team more efficient? How is it helping with the customer experience? Or how is it helping with a digital product? If you don't put what you are trying to explain in terms of what your leadership cares about, your presentation is going to fall flat. The second thing that you're going to do is really focus on the outcome and the impacts of what you've done and what was the problem that you solved. There's a common misconception that leadership understands all the ins and outs and all the reasons why your project was prioritized. Odds are that they don't, but we also don't want to overshare too much information. So being really clear in your presentation on, hey, here's the problem we were trying to solve. Here's the impact of that problem and the outcomes we were looking for. And then going into your analysis, your recommendation, your recap, whatever your topic is going to help get the entire room aligned much more quickly with what you're trying to achieve, rather than spending the whole time trying to keep up with what you're saying. Oftentimes, when we're more junior, we're in the project, we tend to jump right into our solution, our outcome, the end result, and we give a lot of information to back up that decision. And we do it from a place of defense. We want to prove that we know what we're talking about, that we're smart enough, that we did the right things, but we don't take the step back to help explain why it's important in the first place. So anytime you're presenting to senior leaders, take 1 to 2 minutes at the beginning to really set the stage and the narrative for what it is that you're communicating. Why did you do this in the first place? What was your problem? What was the impact of that problem to the company? And then what outcomes were we trying to drive? Then jump into your recommendation, your solution, your proposal, etc. It's really going to help get the team aligned first before you jump in to present. The third thing that you're going to do is you're going to avoid getting pulled into the details. Now, this doesn't mean that if you're asked a specific question that you know the answer to, that you shouldn't answer. You absolutely should. You have all that information ready. However, you don't need to overshare. It is a good rule of thumb with most senior leaders, there's always an exception, but with 99%, to stay at the high level and allow them to ask probing questions that you have answers to than it is to try to give them way too much information up front that they don't know how to digest. I once worked with an executive years ago who told me that talking with me was a little bit like drinking out of a fire hydrant because I was trying to provide all of the information that I had at once to everyone. And the issue is for the individuals who were far removed, that was too much. They weren't able to ascertain why it was important, what I needed from them, most importantly, which is what we'll get to next, or what problems I was trying to solve because they were sucked too deep into the weeds to follow at a high level what I was trying to accomplish. So make sure you're staying at that high level and allowing them to drive the conversation to the details. The next thing is you need to make your call to action for that leadership team very, very clear. If you need them to remove roadblocks, you need to make that ask. If you need resources or people or time, you need to be clear. If you need them to make a decision, you're presenting 2 or 3 options and they need to pick one. Make the ask very, very clear. The worst thing that you can do is go to a team of leaders, present on a topic, and not make it clear what you need, what you're doing next, what the outcome is, and then leave that room. They may be impressed with your acumen, they may be impressed with the initiative, but they don't understand their impact to themselves. So if you are presenting a recap of something that has already happened, that is done, that doesn't need any more action, then we're going to close with our impact statement. This drove this efficiency, this revenue, this click-through rate? What is the impact of the work that you did? If there is any type of work remaining, you are going to end with next steps. Next steps may include call to actions for the individuals receiving that presentation. They might include call to actions for yourself or for your peer group, or they might include roadblocks or things that are getting in the way of ultimately getting this project to completion. But you want to be very, very clear on where this is going and why. When you structure your presentation this way, with the topics leadership cares about in mind, with a clear problem statement and narrative setup, without getting into the details and the minutiae, and with a clear call to action, leaders are going to see you as somebody who can synthesize lots of information in a very clear and easy to digest way. And that's what's going to allow you to progress your career. As I've become more senior, the ask for me is much more often to translate what my team is doing into a summarized way than it is to actually go do the work. And this is true of most senior leaders. So displaying that skill, that clear communication is really going to help you as you progress up the ladder. The last bonus tip that I will say on this is make sure you're tailoring your communication to your audience. Don't go in there saying, yo, bro, wearing a hoodie, being overly casual with individuals who are more senior than you. That is an opportunity to display the best version of yourself. The version of yourself who is a senior leader is who walks into that room to present or who gets onto that Zoom call. That individual has clear communication. It doesn't mean you can't be friendly or ask about their day. There's a running joke with some of my leaders every time I'm on a call and we banter at the beginning. But it does mean that I'm very professional and focused on my task. I'm not there to have a break room chat. So make sure that you're tailoring your communication to your audience, you stay professional, and ultimately you stay on topic. Hopefully you found this was helpful. If you did, go ahead and subscribe to my channel for more tips like this. Otherwise, we'll be back next week with more great advice to help you accelerate your career.